Okay, this is part four of four parts on Goethe, Conversations with Goethe by Johann Eckermann. And I think this is the best part because I'm going to go through his great quotes like, why is Goethe, despite all his nonsense, still a heroic figure and somebody who one can learn a lot from? Okay, so here's some quotes from him. Write about your daily experiences that emotionally and intellectually motivate you. Write while your interest in the topic is hot and active. Be careful about writing long books. Okay, just for what it's worth, in case you don't know me yet, I've written over 30 books and I know exactly what he's talking about as a writer. Is that when you get involved in a big project, something that's going to be like 600 or more pages and it's real complex and stuff, all your time goes into that. And so you'll have all these little daily experiences that might be good ideas for a YouTube video or for a book chapter or something. And unless they fit with that major work, you'll often just ignore them in a pile. I have stacks and stacks of paper that I have to get around to from all the notes I take, whatever the book I hear in the car or a video I watch or something. I get all these ideas. And he says what happens is you neglect all these little things, which might have produced a bunch of good shorter works, and to put it all into your big work. And unless you're ready to carry out a big masterpiece, then you're wasting your time. For example, he says a young man should never do a big epic type work because young guys don't know much. They just don't have the experience, the knowledge, the skill to put together a major epic magnum opus. Okay, that's something for an older man to do. She says a young guy should just concentrate on their daily experiences and try to produce a good piece of work about whatever they encounter because you're the expert on that and you can do something good with it. You know it. It happened to you. Okay. He says it's better to make multiple really good short works than to make one big work that's a mediocre thing. Nobody's going to want to go to it. In order for people to want to read a big work, it has to be, top notch. Okay. Let's see. What else does he say? Yeah, young writers should stay with small projects. Like I can tell you, like I'm a medical physician, I have never in my life seen a doctor younger than 40 years of age ever make a good presentation. Their presentations are always Mickey Mouse. They simply, read what they learned in the book or some paper. They don't have any clinical experiences. In conventional medicine, you got to be at least 40 years of age, and usually the 40 to 50 are not very good. They start getting good. A really good doctor starts getting good at giving very meaningful, top-notch lectures when they're in their 50s, because then they've done a lot of cases. Let's say you want to talk about, doing a TIPS procedure in the liver, transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunt. Well, you have to have done lots of them in order to know all the nuance of what works, what doesn't work, what gets you into trouble, where are the complications, where did you screw up, what did you learn from, what will you never do again, what are you always going to do from now on. It takes experience. Plus, an old guy, he's got a full professor position. He's secure in his job. He can tell you, this is how I screwed up this case. This is how I had a complication. Whereas a young guy, he's trying to get promoted. He's trying to make tenure, trying to become a professor, trying to become a full partner. So he's scared to tell you about his screw-ups. And because he doesn't tell you about his screw-ups, which the audience is there to learn, how do we avoid mistakes, his talks always stink. They're always lightweight. So anyways, you have to sort of know what level you're at and what's the best you can do for your level. Okay, Goethe continues. Audacity is required for greatness. Okay, you gotta have some confidence in yourself and say, I can do it, I'm gonna go for it in order to do anything. If you're a chicken shit and a wimp, because people say to me, why are you so aggressive and over the top? I'm like, dude, I've rewritten all your internal medicine textbooks and your internal medicine subspecialty textbooks in most fields. I have to be assertive. I constantly am harassed, ostracized, and criticized. If I wasn't strong in my confidence, I wouldn't do this because I know full well all the conventional books stink. They're a disgrace. They're a joke. Okay, Goethe, a great man's shortcomings are taken from his epoch. His virtues and achievements are his own. Yeah, whatever age a guy lived in, he's going to do whatever people do of that age, okay? And you'll say, Thomas Jefferson was bad because he owned slaves. No, everybody owned slaves pretty much. If you lived in the South back in those days, then you had money. Actually, about 98% of Southerners didn't own slaves, but it was because they were poor. But Thomas Jefferson was a brilliant guy, and he did the best he could to promote freedom. They couldn't get rid of slavery at the founding of the United States because they wouldn't be able to get the unity of the 13 colonies. Slavery still continues in Africa to this day. It still continues in Muslim countries. It still continues in India. It still continues in most of the world. It still continues all throughout China, and every communist country is basically slavery, Russia, etc. So it's basically normal to have slavery in a bad way, but that's reality, okay? So this idea of it only being something in the USA, that's ridiculous. It's Christianity. They got rid of slavery in the places where it's allowed. Okay, let's see what he says next. He says, yes, for example, it was the age that put Socrates to death. It was the age that burnt Huss. The ages have always remained alike. Yeah, and that's how it is now, okay? So I think that's a good statement. Give the old-time guys credit for what they did, and their faults are most of the time just because of their contemporary age. He says all professional men are handicapped by not being allowed to ignore things which are useless. Okay, and I think that's a good one. And what I mean by that is, have you ever seen a good book written by a college professor? It's like 99.9% of college professor books, they all suck. Okay, I love art, and I'm looking at all these art books, and I'm like, man, they all suck. I should write my own. Because the college professor, they're a bunch of wimpy lightweights, and they feel like they have to pretend that modern art's the same as, real, true, great art. And so, like, once a person goes down that path and conforms to contemporary nonsense, then they suck, okay? Look at the college professors in psychology. They all stink. They're all worthless because they're afraid to ever criticize women. How can you talk about relationships if you're not allowed to criticize women? Okay, then you go to the internet, and all these dating coaches are telling you, this is what happened to me with this girl, this is what happened when I got divorced. They're great, they're very useful. That's real life. So that's what I'm kind of saying is, and Schopenhauer had said the same thing. He said all great books are written by amateurs because they write about the subject because they love it, they're interested in it, whereas the professors are just trying to get promoted or, make money or fame or something. They're not trying to develop knowledge in the subject. Okay. All right, Goethe continues. How much effort and how much expenditure of mental energy is necessary in order to see a great wholeness as an orderly unit, and how important it is to have quiet, undisturbed time in one's life. Yeah, you have to isolate yourself and pretty much give up a lot of other things if you're going to do excellent creative work, because there's only so much time in the day. In a perfect world, you'd have somebody financially supporting you, and you could just work on your artistic creation. But in reality, most people, like myself, we work full time. So you have to do it on your weekends. And then when you do it on your weekends, you have to find a way that you free up your time. And that's why, like, a lot of people say to me, why did I stay with my former wife, even though she was kind of not that nice to me and she got real overweight and I really wasn't that attracted to her after a while? Because she managed the property like a landlord, and in so doing, I was a free man. I could just write her one check a month. I didn't have to manage the house because she forced me to move to a house that I hated. And in so doing, I no longer had to do anything. I never cleaned up a dog crap. We had 5 dogs. I never cleaned the property. I did nothing. I wrote her one check a month, and then I spent all my time making my books and my YouTube videos. Okay, so I like that. And I'm like, oh, she's a better landlord than a wife. So anyways, be that as it may, that's why people do the things they do. Next thing he says, the intelligent man finds laughter in most things, the sensible man in hardly anything. Yeah. Okay, personality is everything in art and poetry. Yeah, if you want to read a book, the author's voice is essential to the book being good. Unless they've had some unique special experience, their voice is key if it's going to be good or not. That's why you can't teach writer style very well, because it's the personality of the person. Individuality of expression is everything in art and poetry. In the end, we retain from our studies only that which we practically apply. Yeah, you got to use the knowledge to maintain it. And so that's the same thing. Like if you're a doctor, you remember the stuff of the clinical problems you see on a daily basis. If you're an artist, you remember the stuff you use in your creative products. First build a proper goal. The proper goal will make it easy, almost automatic, to build a proper you. The important thing in life is to have a great aim and the determination to attain it. Now, I think that's good. Having a big purpose, you dedicate yourself. Dedicate yourself to being a good parent, a good coach, a good teacher, whatever it is. And you'll make yourself a better person in the process, and you'll be a lot happier. Okay, Goethe continues. In the face of criticism, one can neither protest nor respond. One can only continue to do good, and with time, the situation is likely to yield in your favor. Yeah, I think that's a good one too, is be so good that you make it obvious the person who's criticizing you unfairly is a jerk. Okay, Goethe continues. What is uttered from the heart alone will win hearts of others to your own. Yeah, and that's a little bit like the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. That which is most deep and personal is that which is most universal and the audience will respond to. Okay. And then he says, I think I am better than the people who are trying to reform me. Yes, that's a good one. A creation of importance can only be produced when the author isolates himself. It is a child of solitude. I cannot produce anything without absolute solitude. The highest happiness of man is to have probed what is knowable. Okay, so I like that. That's a little bit like Aristotle. Aristotle said the greatest pleasure in life is contemplation, because unlike the other pleasures that wax and wane, contemplation is continuous and you can enjoy it all day long. Yeah, you make the two-back beast, that'll just take you a little while, but you can enjoy reading and thinking and writing all day long. Okay. He says, what you can dream, you can do. Begin it. Boldness has genius and power and magic in it. Seize this very moment. Begin the work and it will be completed. Enthusiasm is of the greatest value. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. You got to convince yourself. Number one, is it worth doing? Yes or no. Number two, can you do it? Number three, how could you do it? Figure out the time. Usually for me, that's the biggest challenge in writing any book is, do I have the time that I can make this happen? And am I doing anything else at the moment that's more important? But if I got nothing else more important going on, I see I got about 7 days off, and over the course of the next month or so, I'll go, there it is. That'll be the book. And then I'll just all day long crank that book out in those days. I usually already have the book half written. I just transpose it from a bunch of my previous lectures. Okay, that's how I can do it so fast. Okay, let's see what he says. He says, higher aims are in themselves more valuable, even if unfulfilled, than lower ones, even if attained. Whatever good results I find in my reflections, they come to me when I'm walking. Yeah, a lot of people have said that they get their best ideas walking. Instruction does much, but encouragement does more. The way you treat people, the way you see people determines how you treat them, and the way you treat them determines what they become to you. The most difficult thing is to see that which is right before our faces. The most difficult thing to talk about is that which is right before our faces. Things which matter most should never be at the mercy of things which matter least. Okay, I got one more slide and then that's it. Okay, he says, poetical talent of ladies usually seems to occur in those who have not been fortunate in love, and they now seek compensation in intellectual pursuits. Had they been married in time and born children, they would never have thought of poetical productions. As to the talents of ladies, I have always found that they ceased upon marriage. I have known girls who drew quite finely, but as soon as they became wives and mothers, it was all over. They were busy with their children and they never again touched a pencil. And that's pretty much been the fate of women ever since the beginning of recorded time. Before birth control, the average woman would have like 10 children or more. So she's quite busy with all those children. She's always either pregnant or nursing, okay? And that keeps her very busy. So she's not going to be like some solitary genius writing all day long in his library, okay? And so that's why women have not had anywhere near the amount of creative achievement that men have. Nowhere close, not even in the ballpark, okay? Women got a good brain, a lot of them, but their focus in life most of the time is going to be their children. And that's how it's always been, and that's how it always will be. And that's where their joy comes from. You ask any woman over 40, what's the joy of your life? I've never in my life heard any of them say anything other than it was having kids and having a family. Okay, let us continue. This modern world tries to pretend men and women are the same, which is ridiculous. It's insane, and it's bad for society. And it's done that way, trying to mess up all the gender roles as a way to prevent the native citizenry from having kids and repopulating, Okay, Goethe continues, you must concentrate your energy to produce creative work. You should avoid all distractions. You need time alone to write and think. Read literature and philosophy from a wide range of people and places to expand your knowledge and thinking. To write prose, one must have something to say, but he who has nothing to say can still write poetry, poems and rhymes. A person hears only what they understand. All extraordinary men who have achieved great things have been called crazy by the world. Yep. And he says, the hero draws inspiration from the virtue of his ancestors. Population, culture is held together by shared stories. Whether true or not, these stories are more important for societal excellence than any revisionist pseudo-historian BS that tries to diminish the people. And I talked about that earlier. Roman, Horatius at the gate of the Tiber Bridge fighting the Etruscans, for example. Mucius Scaviola, lefty, confronting Lars Porsena, king of the Etruscans. Okay, he says, Don't waste your time arguing with people. It doesn't get you anywhere. For example, Eckermann had been offered a job writing for some newspaper to do book reviews and criticize people for all kinds of things. And he was considering taking the job. Goethe said, don't waste your time arguing with people. Do your own creative work. He says, if you argue with people, all you'll do is spin your wheels and waste your time. I feel the same way. I want to discover new things in pathophysiology and stuff. People say to me, because I get viewer comments all the time, why don't you debate, some paleo keto BS artist, some high-fat phony BS artist? And I'm like, that doesn't particularly interest me. I'd much rather put my energy into writing an original, new, interesting material, a new discovery, a new idea, or just, something that's new and interesting to me rather than arguing with all this nonsense stuff. Okay, Shakespeare has already exhausted the whole human nature and all its tendencies and all its heights and depths, and in the fact that there remains for him, the aftercomer, nothing more to do, and how to get courage to put pen to paper if conscious in an earnest appreciating spirit that such unfathomable, unattainable excellences were already in existence. So some people had said that Goethe had exhausted the German language, Shakespeare had exhausted the English language, but obviously that's not true. They've maybe done so in their genre, but not in anything else. And, that was back in the days of naturalism. Literature got much better after that. Okay, Goethe also says, be nice to people, get along with people. Let's see. Also, another way to create new work is genre mixing. Take stuff from a couple different areas and combine it. That's one of the best ways to create new stuff. And read in a wide variety of fields, because people ask me, where is it? Like a nurse said to me, why do you write 30 books? I mean, isn't it enough just to write 5? Why do you keep doing this? Are you obsessive compulsive? Are you crazy? I said, no. The reason why I can write so many books is the average doctor only reads the conventional books, and that's all they know. And if that's all you know, then those books seem completely comprehensive. But once you've read nutrition and toxicology and epidemiology, then you realize the conventional books are just Mickey Mouse, and you want to correct all those fields. And so that's what I did. Okay, continuing with Goethe's quotes, he says, for the most important part of a person's life, it's during their development, the teen and 20-something years. In the end, we retain from our studies only that which we practically apply. In all my 75 years, there has never been a month of genuine comfort. It has always been a perpetual rolling of a stone, which I have raised anew. My real happiness was poetic contemplation. But how this was disturbed, limited, and hindered by my external position at Weimar. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. If I had to categorize this guy based on studying him quite extensively, he loved being a poet. He loved poetry. He was talking about poetry every day with Eckermann, okay? Poetry for me, it's a little bit boring, but, it can be entertaining. All right, anyways, he says, to develop a good sense of aesthetic taste and judgment, one should study the very best works, so one knows what true excellence really is. A really great talent finds its greatest happiness in creative work, but inferior talents do not enjoy art for its own sake. They care about it only for the profits they hope to make. Most men only care for science insofar as they can make money from it, and they worship errors if it affords them money. The great painters like Raphael, they do not spring out of the ground. Raphael's skills and that of the other painters, they take root from studying the masters of antiquity, as well as the more recent great artists, and by learning what had been done before them. Had they not done this, there would be little to say about them. So anyways, those are the quotes of Goethe. I hope you found those helpful. And that concludes the book review on Goethe's Conversations by Johann Eckermann.